Hello and welcome back. Yeah, for another Friday Love, Learn, and Leadership live show. And these have been so fun as an opportunity for us to connect and get a chance to focus in on the positives for a little bit and to hear stories from across our state, focusing in primarily on our building level leadership, but getting some of our ESU voices in there as well to talk about those joys from the week and also just to spend some time on the topic of leadership, which is always really fun. And so if you're tuning into this live, we encourage you to be engaged in the comments in the chat, and we can bring those in real time. If you're watching this on replay, just sit back and enjoy. So really grateful today to have Brandon Mowinkel of Milford Public Schools joining us as our building level leader there, and Dr. John Skretta of ESU 6. Back for another Friday live show. We got a seasoned pro here in John. So John, would you do me a favor and introduce Brandon real quick for us? Because it was a connection that we kind of all put together here, and excited for that.
Well, Brandon Mowinkel is one of the finest principals in the state of Nebraska and an incredible leader of learning, and is right here in Milford, working in the Milford Public Schools, and ESU 6 is headquartered in Milford. So we got that in common. This town's big enough for both of us, folks. Can you believe it? It's true. And I just want to take this opportunity to do a shameless promotion of 5 Days in May, baby. One of the finest publications in terms of a travel log, photo journalism at its best, a story of a trek across the state of Nebraska, an epic journey that Brandon undertook, with incredible photos. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that, because it is really like the heart and soul of reflective educational leadership. Great book, man. And really, really proud that you've got that out there, and really want to lift that up because it's a fantastic testament, not just to education and leadership, but also to the state of Nebraska. So cool stuff, man.
Well, thanks, John. That only took you a minute and a half to get my book plug in, so I appreciate it. I didn't know if it would come up, but it didn't take long. But yeah, it was not to talk about the book much, but it's truly it was a reflective piece that I felt needed to be done, just about a trek I took across Nebraska in May of 2020 when we were at the early stages of the pandemic. So I appreciate your feedback, John, and your support for it.
Right on, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, a chance to peruse that a little bit over admin days this summer as Jen McNally and a number of folks. We actually had that all around and we're checking it out at that time. So thanks, Jen, for leaving some comments here for us. Certainly always a welcome comments as we go through things. And there you go. Signed copy even. So even giving autographs. Love that.
I didn't even know that was an option.
Good thing you live in town together. You can make it work.
Wait a minute.
Each and every Friday we spend a little bit of time sharing our loves from the past week, our learns, and then a little note on leadership. And so we're just going to dive right into it here with the love round, where what's something that you loved over the course of the last 5 to 7 days? Could be personal or professional. Brandon, we'll start with you.
So I have a list of them. I hope that's not too much, but I'll go through quickly. It's been a good week. I think every week is different, as you all know, in the educational world. And so when you step in on Monday, you don't quite know what the week's going to hold for you, but there are certain things that are planned. And the first one was on Wednesday. I got to accompany our group of juniors to Northeast Community College for a college visit. We take all of our 7th through 12th graders on at least one college visit a year. And that is always one of the best experiences, to see kids and like their faces light up when they're experiencing this, and they realize what a campus can do for them, what the people at campus can do for them, what the programs can do for them. And so I was up at Northeast, a tremendous facilities, tremendous place to be. And we were getting in the van on the way home, and I just asked, what'd you guys love about it? And multiple kids' face just lighted up. And, kids that probably thought maybe college was could be a reality for them, but I think this solidified that, yeah, there's people here that care about me. There's programs here that I really want to explore. And so just being able to see kids' faces light up and realize that after high school, I have all of this in front of me, that's a huge love for me, because that's why we're here. We want kids to explore those passions and their purpose in life. And so that was one of my loves. And then yesterday, our high school counselor received the Nebraska State College Counselor Excellence Award in Lincoln. And I snuck in the back door to watch the awards ceremony, and because I wanted to be there for Rose, and just the tremendous work she does here every single day. She works her tail off, making sure our students have opportunities like the college visits, college and career access day, career training, social emotional learning and support. And so just to see her recognized at the state level for that was a huge love, because she truly loves and cares about all of her kids here at Milford. And so that was an additional love for me. And then my last one was, it's two things in one. So we've had some really cool opportunities for a couple of our extracurricular programs. Our Pro Start Culinary Arts group is actually in Lincoln today, meeting with a professional chef mentor to prepare for an upcoming event. They got invited to that. And my son happens to be a part of that, and he's only a 7th grader. And so just to see the excitement on his face. And then the other one was our show choir dance team musical students got to participate in a virtual choreography session with the cast of Hamilton here at school.
What?
And so to see them up on the stage and on Zoom, and they're learning from the best of the best, and that was really cool too. So like all of those experiences that kids get to have, or opportunities that are presented to them, just makes my heart swell with pride. And to see that, and then on top of it, on a personal level, I got to go to Hamilton on Tuesday night with my oldest daughter and my wife. So to see that, it kind of was really neat. So those are my loves from the past 5 days, plus probably many more that I just didn't list.
Gosh, I love this as being one format of what I hope is and will become even more and more formats for this kind of stuff. Because I feel like I turn on the news every day and I hear negative things, and I appreciate being informed about some things that I don't always like to hear about. So, I'll give that disclaimer. But, I love that, Brandon. Like in the last 5 days, boom, 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 all this stuff that I feel inspired by, and you drop all that in like a minute and a half. And it's like, imagine if we could just get more of our collective narratives out about all the great things that are happening. Because everything from those site visits at the university level to getting the chance to learn from professionals in the field, and then go watch those yourself, right? Like there's just some cool stuff going on. And what a week. That's energizing just to hear about that.
Yep, makes you feel good on a Friday morning. So,
oh, for sure, and getting to reflect that those things are happening. John, how do you feel hearing that? I guess I'll set you up for it.
Well, I mean, look, it's the Love and Learn live stream. It's not the Languish and Lament live stream. There's plenty of that out there, right? We had a Soups Association meeting here yesterday, and we're fortunate enough to have Senator Coulterman visit. And one of the topics that came up was just how difficult the servant leadership of school board members has been, and how it's been tested during this time with some contentious and divisive rhetoric from folks in the public at times. And Senator Coulterman just shared with us that kindness and a willingness to listen are prerequisites if you really want to make a difference. And that's that I hear that just infused in everything that Brandon was just sharing with us. And the love there in terms of Brandon's understanding as a principal of the importance of an activities program, and how activities are not peripheral, they're not marginal, they're central to the mission of a great high school, because it extends upon, expands upon, and reinforces classroom learning. I mean, I love hearing about what the students at Milford are benefiting from, man. That's great stuff. The love that I want to share is just my understanding that as I had the opportunity to reflect on this week, that when we are committed with a sense of purpose to what we get to do for our profession, we are blessed sometimes to be able to establish a legacy in education. And yesterday evening, I was one of the trainers for an ESU 6 sponsored substitute teacher consortium. It's a local sub consortium. So concisely what it means is that because we're a consortium sponsoring it, a student who qualifies to get a local sub certificate can use that across multiple districts instead of just one. So we have like 8 of our school systems that are in this. And we work directly with our partner post-secondaries, Concordia, Doane, and UNL. And the college education at UNL was where our training was last night. And, you know, you talk about somebody who models leadership, and think about Brandon, and lo and behold, Brandon's daughter, Kaylin, was one of the students who is an education major at UNL, who is going to become an FCS teacher, and was going through this training experience last night. And having the opportunity to meet her was a real privilege. And I just love that sense of, you know, when we as parents, sometimes the demands of the profession mean that you spend an awful lot of time raising other people's children. And you sometimes wonder, how are my own kids going to turn out in all this, you know? And yet, wow, Kaylin, impressive young aspiring educator, and it expands from that. April Kelly, our professional development director, was one of the trainers at last night's event, and her son also went through that training last year and is going to become a teacher. And my son Kobe is a social sciences education major at UNL, and about halfway through his junior year now. So I just wanted to share that love, because I think sometimes there's a lot of there's sometimes some negative rhetoric about public education out there, and yet when you look at our families and forwarding that legacy and that commitment in education, it's really inspiring, and it's really fulfilling to see that. So that's what I wanted to share.
Oh, well, I love getting a chance to sit here and hear both of you speak about these things that are going on. And that is really just powerful to think about that legacy piece, especially as somebody who is the 4th Andrew Easton in my family and the 3rd teacher coach in a row. And I remember being around my dad and my grandfather as a little kid. They coached together, actually. And so it was a family event all the time. And I grew up loving that and couldn't I don't really imagine anything but being in this profession for those reasons. I do want to bring up that Jamie, hey, thanks for joining us. And she's loving those opportunities for Milford students as well to grow as scholars. I want to echo that. And I guess in part really building upon the point that John made for my own love this week. And I'll keep it pretty brief. And I do have 2. My personal one would be with my own kids. My son has just kind of gotten into a season at 7 years old where he's just been kind of a handful. and you know, you have those times where I think you're right, John. You spend so much time raising kids, and you're like, wait a minute, like I understand how to work with kids. We've been professionally working with kiddos for about 15 years now. Like, what happened? Where is this in the playbook? And I did get an opportunity though, like last night. We just kind of peeled off and had some one-on-one time. Had some really good conversations with him, and felt like it kind of diffused a little bit of the season that he's in, and that beautiful reciprocity that comes from work. I think sometimes feeding into home and home into work played in my favor on the home front too, because, and I'll bring this up for my learn later, but I got a chance to learn from Brooke Cavan a little bit more about that cognitive coaching. And some of the little nuggets that I took from those conversations actually fed into some of our growth together in our conversations with my son. So loved that happened. My pivot to my professional one would be to say that PD for me for November is out. and that's a shameless plug, yes, but plug nonetheless, because it is has been super fun. We have pushing almost 900 educators who either digitally or via the mail receive this one pager, or for free. It just sends you some professional development on a topic that the teacher selects. And it has been a little bit of a lift to get those all stuffed into envelopes and sent out to folks with their pen of choice, or their drink of choice. For example, in the previous month, where we had coffee, little instant coffees for people, or we had tea bags and those kind of things. And it has been a lot of fun, but it also is really nice to go, all right, it's out there. And I'm just really grateful, and want to take a quick second to say that I love getting a chance to sit down with Deb Herricks and stuff all those envelopes, get that sent out, and all the collaboration with educators like Nick Ziegler and Kristen Skretta, amongst many others who have collaborated on the content for those. And so a lot of good vibes, getting a chance to be invested in that work. So that's been the love for this week.
That's really cool. Share a little bit more about what are those, like the PD in a box, like how do you guys package that really? And
okay, so I had one that came back, so maybe I can just open this one up as like an example, right? So we have these I'm going to hold over the address so that people don't but there, you get this in the mail, which is nice to kind of get some snail mail stuff, and a little PD for me on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'll go ahead and in there's a one pager, and this particular teacher chose STEM and STEAM. So this was actually the content for this was put together resources from the TLT work group, but was ultimately constructed by Diana Steinbrink at ESU 10. And so she did all the kind of detailed work in there. And so you got everything from videos to books to tools to an educator to follow, because we didn't want to make this something that just is a one pager that just kind of goes someplace and is stagnant. And then there's 3 reflection questions. And you're like, wait, how do you get to these links then? Up at the top, there's a QR code and a link so you can actually get to the digital stuff. And there's 3 reflection questions that on the back, you could meet up later in the month to talk about those with other people. And that was a really big piece that we kind of wanted to promote too, is just how do we help folks out, to have constructive conversations around things that they're interested in voluntarily, right? But I'm proud to say that in October, over half of these optional lunch opportunities were attended. So that's a win, right? Like, I was really okay with that. With that, stickers, coffee.
It's sweet,
man. Other things, and it's just been fun. So
very cool.
A lot to love in that. And sorry, probably took too much time with it, but shout out to Deb. And yes, PD for me. And Jen McNally is actually one of the featured educators in our largest mailer in November. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
To point
very cool.
The great things she's doing. So I've said too much. Let's go to the learn. Feel here to hear from you two. So Brandon, what was your learn from this week?
So each week is a million opportunities to learn. So I have 2 of them. And they're both from Monday. We had full day in service on Monday. We started with PLCs and talking individually about kids and where they're at, what they need to help, where they need help to finish the semester strong. And so I think there's always a lot of power in that for our staff, for me, because I don't get to see every kid every day, and just being able to be in those conversations and really learn more about who our students are and how we can better support them is always a really powerful learning experience for us all. And so then we split up responsibilities as to who may reach out to the family, who may reach out to other groups, who's going to sit down with the student. One of the nice systems we have built here at Milford is we have a common study hall. We call it Focus every day, 3rd period. So all of our 9th through 12th graders are available during that time. And so it makes it a lot more convenient to talk to students because we know everybody's available. Also for teachers provide those interventions. And so that was the first part of Monday, just getting to learn more about our students and what their needs and how we can better support them. And then on the flip side of that, Jen McNally was here to talk about staff wellness. And so we took an hour and a half just to talk about staff and what their needs are and how we can better support them. And they did some activities that were super powerful, just about what is your why. We use the one word book. And so she tied all those pieces together. And then we talked in small groups and large groups about how we could better support each other as a staff. And so those Monday was a really powerful day of learning around here. And then the afternoon was some individual work time for different teachers, but just being able to have that morning and focus on two very important groups of the school, our students to start the day, and then our teachers, and give that individual time. It was super powerful. And then Tuesday night, I said I went to Hamilton, and the one line in there, and I think it was Aaron Burr told Alexander Hamilton, talk less and smile more. And I think that was a very powerful thing I needed in that moment. So, like, sometimes just sit back and listen and smile when people are talking. So those are my learns for the week.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm going to take that advice and flip it to John.
Okay, so you mentioned Jen McNally, and Jen is just absolutely one of the most compelling speakers and presenters I think I've had the opportunity to hear. She presented a keynote at NERCSA last spring, and that was actually the first opportunity that I had to hear Jen deliver a keynote, and how compelling it was. And I want to share one of the things that I think is an essential learning that has been and continues to be a takeaway for me from Jen McNally. And that is a reflection of what Brandon shared about taking the time for teachers to reflect on self-care and wellness and its importance in meeting our mission. Because the reality is, in a servant vocation, in a service oriented gig like teaching, if we don't take care of ourselves, we are ill-equipped to take care of others. And so checking in with yourself periodically and taking the time to do that, that's been a big learning for me from Jen, and you know, some of the things that I think she really emphasizes so articulately and in such a compelling fashion. The other thing that I wanted to share that also connects with what Brandon described is the PLC work happening at Milford, and teachers reflecting on how can we better serve our students. What a fundamental first question. What a foundational question to always be asking ourselves as educators. I had a great conversation with our ASD specialist, our board certified behavior analyst, Jen Quaranta, yesterday. And she was talking with me about her work within schools. And Jen works in situations where there are very challenging behavioral issues that teachers are encountering and wrestling with. And Jen, in her conversation with me, just emphasized the importance of that reflective practice of understanding that the first thing that we need to do when a classroom encounter does not go as anticipated and a student is behaving in a way that is not conducive to learning and to the outcomes we want, is actually ask ourselves that self-reflection of what might I do differently? What might I learn that may help me more effectively manage, connect with, and build a compassionate relationship with that student. And I just thought, wow, you know, that what Jen shared with me yesterday, just in a kind of a sidebar conversation, really resonates with the whole notion of PLCs and teachers saying, what can we do? What must we do differently in order to achieve even better outcomes? And so those would be the learnings that I'd share.
I'd piggyback off of that, John, and just having that collective group in the same room. So we meet by grade level bands for that. but to use our resources like the ESU and Jen, which we have, to help frame those conversations is so incredibly powerful, because a lot of times we do get stuck in our own little world and we can't see outside of that. And so to have those other voices come in, such as Jen with working with behaviors, which we've used, is just tremendous. And then you do reflect more deeply upon your own understanding and your own behaviors and your own reactions to situations. And that helps everybody in the room. It helps the school as a whole. And so I guess I'm just giving a shout out to the ESU 6 and all of the sports that they play or give their schools too. So just amazing work. I'm glad you brought up Jen, John, because she's worked with us this year on a number of issues. So very powerful stuff.
That's great.
Well, and Jen's grateful for the opportunity, and I'm sure she's blushing knowing her, like, as she does like being at the center of things, but is willing to step into those spaces and advocate for the good work that you both are referencing there. And I would echo that and say I'm just grateful to have her voice on behalf of education and for the benefit of our educators across our state. So good job, Jen. And thanks for being here too. She's everywhere. Like, that's the other thing. So mini TED Talk. I agree. I totally agree. It is a great learning opportunity here each and every week as we go through it. So I will be very brief with this and say I loved my opportunity to learn this week as I had a chance to go to Fall NEDA on Monday. I got to go to the educator effectiveness SDA training to kind of learn more about those teacher and principal standards. Hope to actually share that in this format coming up in the next few weeks at some point in time, because I really like the vision, particularly that they have for the principal standards has been, and in both cases, right? But I learned more about that this week and was really, it was thought-provoking. I appreciate that. Cognitive coaching was a part of that day. And then I actually went down the hall and eavesdropped in on the Tri-State Law Conference that's going on right now in our special education realms. And so I wasn't even scheduled to be there, but we got about an hour and a half of case law and thinking through some of that COVID stuff that's going to influence down the line what I don't know, things are in place in our schools in terms of new regulations and things that will be mandatory. So I'm not very well versed in that. That's why I needed to go. But but it was great to be a fly on the wall. And I did. I learned a lot this week. I'm grateful to all those folks that gave the opportunity for me to be around that. So good folks everywhere. That being said, we are now to the leadership portion of things. And so just want to give a little space to Brandon and to John to talk a little bit about everything. I mean, 30,000 feet enough to talk philosophy, or it could be as specific as, hey, here's something that as I walk around the halls that I tend to think as I'm, interacting with students and teachers in the roles that each of you serve. So Brandon, you want to go and get us started?
I sure can. So this is kind of a long story. I'll just make it as quick as possible. So we've been blessed and fortunate to have a very stable staff here at Milford and a very stable admin team. And the key to that is Kevin Wingard, our superintendent. And I think it's been 12 years ago now. He wanted to tie the two buildings together. It felt like we were in the same town, but we always weren't on the same page. And so he wanted to bring those together, and like moments of magic happen in school districts and any organization at times. And we came across this theme of everyone has a story, make yours worth telling. And that was through the book, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller. And just the impact that has had on our school district is unbelievable, but more importantly, me, and just how I operate as a principal. That's our central focus. Is we want our students creating stories we're telling. We want our athletic teams to have stories we're telling. We want our career and technical organizations. We want our staff, everybody that's involved in Milford, we want them writing better stories to tell. And so what the really cool part is, that's been around here for like 11 or 12 years now. And it's a part of our system and what we do. And so through that and how we lead as a district, it is always framed around that story narrative. And I think somebody brought up narrative earlier, and just sharing our stories and getting our good stories out there and not focusing on all the stuff that's out there on social media, but also pushing out the fact that we have kids, going to Hamilton and doing those really, really neat opportunities. And that's creating better stories for them. And so, throughout the pandemic, and especially in spring of 2020, we didn't want to lose that. And so one of my jobs, and not to bring up the whole early part of the pandemic again, I felt was like, as the leader of a building that has nobody in it anymore, how are we still going to stay connected? And so I did a weekly Zoom session with every class for 30 minutes. And so I took 2 a day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we talked about the whole notion of writing your story. Continue to write your story in the midst of complete unknown. And we talked about following passions, following your purpose, working on skills, because you have more time now than you ever had. You'll never have this amount of time ever again, we hope. And so how do you continue to write your story forward, even when it felt like we were stuck? And so one of my philosophy is, if we can meet the goals of the Board of Education, to read, write, do all of those things that we are guaranteeing our public. But on a personal side, my personal philosophy, if we can have kids graduate with those skills plus a passion, a purpose, an employable job skill, we've done our job. And so that's what I really focus in on a leader, is how do we spark that interest in kids? Is that through reading? Is it through music? Is it through art? And all of that has come through my own learning and growth. A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller was one of the books that I read it a couple times a year just to refocus on that whole story narrative part and how do we write better stories for ourselves and others. But then the other book that's really influenced me is called Steal Like an Artist from Austin Kleon. It's a really short, quick read, but it gives you that insight into how do you explore your curiosities in life, your hobbies, and how might that turn into a profession? How might that come from a passion to a purpose? And so as kids progress throughout Milford High School, I really try to focus on those conversations with kids. And then the employable job skill is important because we never know where we're going to end up. And one of the really neat programs we have here is we have a screen printing class that can print T-shirts. And I tell kids there's like 40 screen printing shops in Lincoln alone. So if you're going to the university and you need a part-time job and you walk into one of those screen printing shops and says, yeah, I did this in high school, they're going to hire you because you have that skill already. You've learned that skill. They don't have to train you. And so that is where my focus as a leader is passion, purpose, and employable job skills. And as I was starting to allude to, we talk about that from 7th grade until 12th grade. And hopefully by the time they progress all the way through that, we've had those conversations that kids can identify. Yes, what am I really passionate about at 18 years of age? We also talk about that's going to change too. But what are you passionate about today? What are some things that you can follow? Where might that lead you to? How do you keep your options open when another curiosity is sparked and you want to go explore that? That's okay. That's part of growing up and being a human being. And so I guess in whole, it goes back to everyone has a story, make yours worth telling. And how are our kids writing better stories for themselves? And so, like I said, that comes from consistency though within our staff and the school building, and the fact that it's become a system that we build everything around. So it's been a really cool part. I've been here 20 years. I started as a teacher, was assistant principal, and this is my 10th year as principal. So I've got to walk in all those different aspects of a building and seen that from different levels. And so that whole motto just is really the glue that holds us together and helps me focus every morning when I wake up and walk into this building.
Gosh, I don't even know where. There's so much great stuff in there to highlight too. And I guess I would start by saying that I love hearing that within your district, this is 12 years been the motto, if I'm catching that right. And that I do think there's a time to change the message occasionally, right? Like you have to kind of But if that's every year that there's a different motto, you kind of lose some of that authenticity, I think. But when it's at the core of what you're doing, there's something really powerful to that. And, you know, throughout everything that you shared there a moment ago, not only, I mean, is this like the mantra, right? And you're giving examples of people that because of that leadership are living that out, but it's also incumbent upon us as, you know, leaders or just as individuals, right? To ourselves model the very thing that we're asking other people to step into in those uncomfortable spaces. And, you know, not to like circle back to the book plug thing, but, you know, you've done that, right? Like if anyone needs to know that you will walk the walk, you did it very literally right there, right? For 5 days and the effort that followed. And so because of that, I'm going to spin it back to you real quick, Brandon, and ask, having put that together, having gone through those days and having constructed that, your story to tell and to advocate, how has that, back to that beautiful reciprocity idea, influenced how you lead now, or your ability to do that well, I guess? What'd you glean from it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was my accountability piece to all those conversations that spring. I had to walk the walk, and that was absolutely why I did it. I had no intention of writing a book. That was not the point. The point was to kind of escape, really, refresh, refocus, to reflect. And out of that, on my way home on that last day, on day 5, I'm like, I think I have something here. And then it triggered, like, I've told our students all spring long, do something you would never do if you didn't have the time. And so that's where that came from. And really it was about reflection. Like, I spent 5 days in my truck by myself. I talked to 3 whole people on the whole trip. And it was me and my thoughts, my journal, and my camera, and a bunch of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And really that, it helped me move from where we were. That whole March 11th was like the beginning of it. My daughter was a senior. We didn't get to have prom. We were supposed to go to Washington, D.C. We didn't get to have graduation. You know, we were all feeling bad for ourselves. You know, we were missing out on all this stuff, but it really helped me refocus about, if I'm going to lead, we still don't know what that's going to look like in the fall. How do I better lead in those circumstances, knowing that you can do hard things, and we can get through it. We got through the spring. We got through the whole school year last year. And the big thing that came out of all of this, and this is from Dr. Doug Christensen, former commissioner, I was taking classes at Doane, was the whole reflection piece. I started journaling on March 14th of 2020. I'd never journaled in my life. And I journaled for 14 straight months every day up until May 2nd of 2021. And that was a huge part of my leadership journey then, of just being able to self-reflect every day. What went right? What can we do better? What do I need to do better as a leader? And so that, like you talk about life-changing moments that I wasn't really expecting. I really just went on the trip because I wanted to get away. I had no expectations. I didn't even have an idea where I was going. I just knew I was going to drive around Nebraska for up to a week, and it led to something way bigger, which I think is usually what happens. You can plan all the stuff in the world, but it's those instances where you weren't planning for it that have the greatest impact, and this was one of them. So yeah, it really, it didn't change my leadership focus because it was still passion, purpose, and employable job skills. It reshaped how I look at all that.
That's powerful. I'm just gonna go with Jen. Yep.
Thanks, Jen.
That was great. And then also Gordon Elementary here with I principal so hard.
That's another story. Thanks, Casey. It's a great story too, but I don't think we have time to go that far.
Oh, and we also have there it is. Yep. So if you're looking for a little bit of that,
thanks, Sadie.
That link, it's in there too. So, John, do you want to go ahead and share your leadership piece here?
Yeah, well, just thinking about what Brandon was saying, you know, the diligence and the determination that Kevin Wingard shows as a superintendent, that sense of passion and purpose comes through in everything that he does. And I feel privileged to work with him as one of the 16 soups in the ESU 6 area. Part of what Brandon was describing, and when you look at Milford and how that motto has informed mission and sense of purpose of everyone's got a story, make yours worth telling, really to me resonates with and called to mind a quote from Daniel Goleman, which I'll probably just paraphrase this, but one of the things that, and of course he's the emotional intelligence guy, and one of the things that he said is that we often spend in education, we spend too much time telling people what they think they need instead of asking them who they want to be. And that anecdote and the story that Brandon shared with us today really, for me, is a wonderful expression of education as empowerment, empowering individuals to become their best selves, and embracing the importance of story and storytelling. So it's just great stuff.
Well, Kevin wants to say thanks as well. Had some good vibes there for the great team at Milford and ESU partnership, and really, we've done it here today, right? Just got a chance to share some stories about the loves, the learns, and really, yeah, the heart behind the why, the heart and the why behind which we go about crafting our narratives each and every day that we're a part of and impacting on the education system in Nebraska and for our students locally and statewide. So I'm so grateful to both of you for this. It's been so fun and an awesome opportunity to connect and just have some good vibes on a Friday. Just reflect that, you know what, days are long and the weeks go fast and we get really tired, I think, sometimes in this profession, or often. But when you pick your head up every so often and look at the great work that's going on and how we are together in that, it's really uplifting. So thanks for being leaders in that space.
Yeah, great talking with you guys.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see everybody again next week for the next edition of the Friday Love, Learn, and Leadership Live show. We'll see you then.